Hey everybody, Justin here from CBI Off-Road in Prinsu. Today we have the pleasure of working on a 2019 Chevy Colorado. We're going to show you how to install a roof rack on it. Let's get started. Alright, so now I went ahead and unboxed everything. We kind of laid it all out. We've got our crossbars, side rails, wind deflector, noise reducing trim. This one's getting a light bar, so we have our light bar bracket. Just go ahead and take a quick minute and get familiar with your hardware. Here we have the plus nuts and spacers to secure the rack to the vehicle. This is our Loctite. We'll make sure to use that. Some nice stickers to rep the brand. Here is our hardware. This is a T30 Torx to secure the side rails to the crossbars. We got our wind deflector hardware, and of course our tie-down eyelets to go on top. So now that we have everything, we'll go ahead and start prepping our bolts and get this assembled. All right, so we got our rack unboxed on the floor. Now we're gonna come to the vehicle and remove the weather stripping on both sides. So I've got a microfiber rag so we don't damage the paint to the roof, and some plastic pries to aid in getting it out. So we'll just kind of line up the rag to protect and just pry straight upwards, and it should come out of these pins on both sides. Then we wanna measure back 7 inches from the windshield, make a mark, and that's gonna be our first hole on both sides. Once we get that drilled, we'll get the rack loosely assembled, lock down the front, and then we'll use that as a guide to mark the rest. Sorry for a lot of talking, but just want to make sure we cover all the info. Now it's time to get these out. All right, so we got our 7-inch mark from the windshield. Now we're gonna start drilling these front 2 holes. So this roof is extremely thick and extremely hard to drill through. So make sure you got some good drill bits. I'm starting with a 3/16, then going to a 1/4 inch, and ultimately we wanna be at a 3/8 inch hole for our plus nuts. So just take your time. You don't wanna drill too deep through this roof and into the vehicle, just enough to get through. So if you wanna use a drill bit stop, that's a good idea, but just make sure you control that bit going into the vehicle. We'll go ahead and start our process with a 3/16. All right, so earlier when we were talking about drilling the holes, I mentioned the 3 bits I was gonna be using. That will work, but I noticed it was quite a bit easier if I started with a smaller and just slowly work up to that 3/8 using a ton of different bits. It's a lot better on the bit itself. You're not generating as much heat, and you don't have to push as much downward force to possibly rip through the roof. So I just started with the 1/8 inch bit, and I just slowly worked up these sizes and onto 3/8, and it went a lot smoother. It's a lot easier on your drill bits. Just a quick pro tip, you decide, but if you have the bits, definitely use them. All right, so we went through the daunting task of getting these first holes drilled. So we got the front hole on this side and the front hole on the other side. Now we're gonna install plus nut into both of these holes. So to do that, we need the longer bolt that's in your hardware kit, a washer, the hex coupler, and one of the plus nuts. And how you get these to compress is make sure your plus nut is tightened all the way up against this hex coupler. You're gonna hold the hex coupler with a 1/2 inch wrench, and you're gonna turn the top of it with a 7/16 wrench or ratchet. We're gonna put a little bit of silicone around this edge so that when we smash in the hole, it creates a good weather tight seal. Just make sure you push it flat to the roof to make sure you're compressing it evenly and not side to side. So we'll go ahead and get this compressed. All right, moving on, we got our 2 plus nuts installed on the front of the cab. Now we're gonna come down here and we're gonna install some of the crossbars onto the side rails. So these install on the smaller slots right here, and we're just gonna make sure that we don't install any of the crossbars where there's a mounting foot right now, because we'll need access to that on the cab. So we'll get these assembled, get it on the truck, loosely fit it to the front, and that'll let us mark out the rest of the holes to be drilled. So we'll go ahead and get this installed. All right, so we got our rack on and we went ahead and started these front 2 bolts. Don't tighten these down yet, just get them kind of snug and then jump on the ground and get good eyeball on your alignment. And once you get everything square, Then you can go ahead and mark the holes the rest of the way, all the way down, then take the rack off and go back to drilling. So we got our alignment good, so I'll go ahead and get these marked. All right, so all of our plus nuts are now compressed in the roof. Now what we're gonna do is trim this weather stripping to fit. So we're just making basically marks on either side of the where the mounting foot's gonna be. Give yourself about a 1/4 inch on each side in all 3 locations. So what we're gonna do to cut it is I just have the 5-inch cutoff wheel because this is steel backing. So it'll cut through that pretty easy. So we'll go ahead and get it marked. Next step, now that we got all the weather stripping cut, is we're gonna reinstall it. And on this front part, it's locked in the front by this pin, but there's nothing holding the back. So what I did is went ahead and cut some pieces of double-sided tape. I'm actually gonna stack up 3 pieces to get it to make contact, but this will do a good job at holding the back of it down so we don't have any flapping or anything going on. And as needed, we'll kind of do that same process throughout the weather stripping. We'll go ahead and slap this on. All right, we're moving right along with our install. We have the rack up here now. Next step is we're gonna go ahead and get a bunch of silicone. That's just black RTV silicone, and basically fill up the holes and then smush our spacers down and get everything hand tied all the way around. We don't wanna tighten it up yet until we get our final adjustments, but we'll get everything started. Okay, so now we got everything started. We're aligned good. All our silicone's in place, so we're just gonna go ahead and start tightening it down. Just be careful you don't over tighten these and pull up on that plus nut. Just give it enough to be snug, and that should wrap us up once we get our crossbars in. But for now, we'll snug this down. All right, so now that we're locked down, everything's tight, we're gonna start installing our crossbars that are over our mounting feet that we left out before on the ground. So once we get that, this should be a done deal. Okay, that wraps up this install tutorial. Rack looks great. It's ready to be customized to fit your needs. As always, drop a comment below, like, subscribe. Thanks for watching, guys.